to educate, motivate, and build one another through shared knowledge and success. This is Young and Successful, and these are your hosts, Jay Chukwi, Kenny Awashika, and PJ Luminan.
Welcome back to the Young and Successful podcast. Our goal is to educate, motivate, and build one another through shared knowledge and success. Our guest today is Tanga Kim Reaux. Kim is a public relations and diplomatic protocol expert with close to 20 years of experience in the international and diplomatic space. She has worked and managed a myriad of high-level programs, projects, and initiatives at several U.S. embassies. She served as the chief of protocol to 2 U.S. ambassadors overseas, for whom she cultivated strategic connections, wrote build campaigns, planned VVIP events, and provided strategic advisory. In that role, she also served as protocol advisor to the U.S. mission to the European Union and the U.S. mission to NATO. For the last 7+ years, she has provided advisory and support as a senior management consultant in Washington, D.C., where she has supported the Office of the Secretary of State, as well as the Bureau for Information Resource Management. In D.C., she was sought out to provide protocol search support on VVIP events hosted by the Secretary of State, the Vice President, and the President of the United States, as well as senior IT leaders at the Department of State for the global African diaspora, and has launched Inai Strategic Solutions, a PR and management consulting agency that seeks to make accessible her specific expertise to the global community. She is driven by her commitment to the advancement of the African diaspora globally. Her goal is to put her knowledge and expertise in service of elevating the global Black community's posture on the international stage. And last but not least, she is also an executive MBA candidate at Howard University. Kim, thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that we always talk about at the beginning of the podcast is the intro. What did you think of the intro? I really liked it. I felt inspired just reading it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it was awesome. Thank you. You represented us all well.
Okay, well, you represented all of us well.
That's
right. That's what it is.
I didn't do the job. You did everything.
Hey, you did everything. You did everything. And I'm reading it here and I'm feeling absolutely inspired and absolutely excited to pick your brains. Exactly. And learn more about this. So,
but you know what it is when you have done the job and you right. do the work, it becomes mundane. And so when you hear people mentioning all the things that you've been a part of that you're accomplished, you're like, oh yeah, that was kind of significant because right. You were just doing your job. But yeah.
I agree. I love it. So how did you get into this? Is this something that you've always been interested in, or you kind of just stumbled on it? We tell us a little bit about how you got started and you're getting to where you are right now.
Okay, so as a child, I always had this kind of idea in my head that I was going to be a businesswoman. I didn't quite know what that meant, but I could imagine myself, being like 10 years old and then projecting myself as a 25-year-old wearing, pantsuits and a little briefcase. And I knew it would be at the international level, but I just did not know exactly what that was going to be. Right. So growing up in Europe and going to school, of course, in Europe, there is no real career guidance that occurs at the high school level. So you just kind of have to figure it out yourself. And because I was good at languages, I was kind of pushed in the direction of translation and interpretation, kind of like a conventional major in Europe. And so I said, okay, well, I can do this at the international level. I can do international conferences and things like that. But then I realized that school that I was at, which was the number 2 school in Europe, only had a 3% graduation rate. And I said, wow. It's going to be a lot of work. I don't know if I'm going to make that cut. So let me find something else. And I transferred into public relations. And that just kind of was the perfect fit. Didn't really know what it was before I started it, but it had no math, with the exception of a statistics class, but no math. So that was kind of like my focus. And then I actually got married to an American serviceman. and started traveling. And we had kind of the opportunities to serve at embassies. And so my first post was in Holland at the embassy in The Hague, where I just really got to sit at the general services level, which gave me an overview of how embassies are ran, what all occurs, and what we support there. Then fast forward, the next embassy was in Cairo, huge mission. Again, at the management level, gave me a very deep understanding of what diplomacy is and all of the moving pieces, essentially. Also supported actually the 2009 Obama visit and speech that occurred in Cairo there. And then fast forward some years later, found myself at the embassy in Brussels, back in Brussels again as the chief of protocol. So it was just kind of an organic thing that happened. It wasn't something that I sought out, but it was something that I thought was interesting and realized very early on that there weren't a lot of people that looked like us in those spaces. So I realized that, especially as a chief of protocol, that this was something that we don't actually get to encumber at the position oftentimes. Now, when I would go to training, I would see people from the continent that would come to training to DC for protocol training, but they weren't really getting the full scope of what it entails to be really successful at the higher levels, because they would come from smaller posts in Africa. So I made a conscientious effort to really soak everything in, because I knew that I wanted to put this to the service of my community and take all that expertise back and share it, essentially. So that's kind of how I got where I am today, which is I still support the Department of State, but I'm also setting up and have set up actually last year my own PR and management consulting firm called INAI, where we offer PR and protocol advisory, strategic advisory, training, and the like. So we're really committed to well-crafted and transformative work.
My mind is like bubbling, and I'm just trying to figure out which one of the questions should I go for first. So one of the things that we do, I do a lot of actually as well, is mentoring.
Mm-hmm.
And I also had the experience as a child in high school where a lot of my classmates did not want to do the math and sciences, but they like this international relationships or this what to call it, your major. What's it called again?
Public relations,
Yeah,
international
public
relations,
relations or something.
diplomacy. Yeah.
But they only think to the level of city management or managing the city or managing the community or working for the governor. I mean, yours is like country and global wide. And I'm just seeing that little huge gap that, could be a service that you could provide for high school students and college students. Because a lot of people come to the DC area for this exact knowledge that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just there. And black folks don't go this far as you've gone. I mean, I'm sorry I have to say it, but a lot of us just don't have access or the knowledge. Again, I always say your environment kind of creates who you eventually become. And being around someone like you or access to someone like you actually could help a lot.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. One of the things that really kind of pained me when this was maybe about 2-3 years ago, when I was providing search support in the protocol office. It's a little bit longer ago. We were providing support for an international conference for the then Secretary of State. And we were welcoming people from essentially government. So it was heads of state, heads of government, foreign ministers, and then delegations as well of ministers that might have not been at that same rank. And celebrities and the like. It was just really a nice group of people that were focused on the same topic of climate change. And so we rolled out the red carpet. We provided, I think it was a no budget event. The things that we did, we rented out the Kennedy Center, and we had celebrities come and perform, and we had several dinners. I worked the top level dinner, so we had presidents there. And so a couple of weeks later, there was an Africa summit at the Department of State. And the difference in commitment was just mind-blowing to me, because I remember going to one meeting where we essentially were asking the Africa Bureau if they needed our support. Africa Bureau kind of said, well, we think we've got it. So as the protocol office just kind of sent minimal support, which I was one of the people supporting that. And it was just like, why? These are also governments at the same level that we supported 2 weeks ago. Why is it that we're not giving the same energy? And so I started to observe, and I realized that it was really kind of a dynamic that was deficient on both sides. So I clearly outlined what was wrong, maybe at the Department of State side, but what was going on with these delegations was that there was a lack of knowledge of protocol conduct and behaviors. And so that made for very strenuous relations, in a sense that, the communication was not necessarily there. And so you had people sitting there waiting for hours, not knowing if they could get in because they hadn't announced themselves. And I said, gosh, I could offer this service. I could help these embassies here in DC get up to speed and get to a place where things are more streamlined, because if you're more streamlined, you'll also be taken more seriously. And then, things might actually pan out, and negotiations, high stakes negotiations might actually be a lot more fruitful. And so that's where kind of the idea started to brew. And then I realized, but same is true for businesses. Businesses that want to elevate on the global scale need to also understand who their interlocutor is, and so could benefit from that same knowledge and expertise. And so my door is open to small businesses all the way up to like governments and high level organizations. So I think everybody deserves to get the same level of support so that we all can thrive, because essentially we set the tone in so many other areas of life already. Why not be taken seriously across the board?
Absolutely. With where you are at this point, and if you kind of roll back and look towards the beginning of your career, do you feel like there is something else or is it something that you wish you knew back then that now, right? Something that would have made a massive difference in the way you moved over the past 20 years and the past 7+ years doing what you've been doing now?
Yes, absolutely. The value of network, the value of really creating relationship-based network, not just transactional, but really a network of people that you can trust, that will be there when you need them. And that's definitely something that I think we can work on as a people. We can all win, we can all be successful, and we all bring something to the table. And I think part of what I've kind of always navigated that way. My dad was a proud Muluba from the Luba tribe, and what he instilled in us was the same kind of philosophy that a lot of parents instill in their children, which is you treat everybody with dignity and respect, from the janitor to the CEO, right? And so we say that, but we don't always mean it. In my line of work, I need the janitor. So if I don't treat the janitor right, then I'm not going to get them to execute what I need when I need them. If there's a spill or if there's something that's just out of place and it needs to be fixed now, if they don't feel a connection with me or they feel mistreated, they're not going to want to help me out. So I knew that, but I did not necessarily see that as I navigated my professional path. And I still kind of struggle with that now because a lot of people are transactional. So I think that the value of a relationship-based network is really the key to success. It is incumbent upon us to also pull others up with us as we move up, um, and just really just do things together. That's the part that I would have, if I would have known that earlier, that that was exactly the way to go, then I wouldn't have wasted time on trying to fit in or trying to do things differently or adapt to my environment. I would just stay the course.
Man, you just give a wonderful seed right there. Move
Absolutely.
others up with us as we
Right.
move up. And we don't get a lot of
Yeah.
that in our community. That's major. And I would just literally add a little bit to what Shay just said, because we do have a huge amount, like a good sum. I was one of those people that migrated into the DC area, and I've
Mhm.
stayed since then, and we still have them coming. And I would say a good percentage come into DC for kind of what you did, but a lot of them automatically run to Congress or just just around that, more focus around that. That's why we have all these students in Georgetown and
Mm-hmm.
GW and all this stuff. Um, what would you say to someone that is just arriving in DC or wants to move to DC just because of this?
Yeah, I think that there's other avenues to really get on the international scene. I guess the State Department, for me, because I've spent there so many years, is one of the ways, and they have programs essentially that um, help students to get acquainted with what diplomacy is, and um, and then you have a slew of not-for-profit organizations that are also in the space doing work abroad with USAID and other agencies that are actually have a global focus. So I think those agencies are overlooked because Congress is kind of the magnet for like high level, um, I guess, or is the conduit, I should say, to like a political career or a career in it on the international stage or higher levels of government. But I think that maybe this is just me, but I think that for people like us who come from somewhere else that want to actually ascend to these higher levels, I think we need to stay true to ourselves and really just get what we can get out of the experiences that we are afforded in Washington, D.C., and put that to the service. I truly believe that service, being in service of a mission, whether that is the Black community in my case, or to an ideology, um, it kind of puts momentum under your and energy into what it is that you're trying to achieve, and the universe, God, whatever people like to call it, will actually propel you in a certain direction. And it sounds kind of cliche, but it's true, because once you realize that you're kind of authentically you and you're standing in the gap to something bigger, things start to happen.
Mm.
True.
So there's other avenues. I don't think Congress is the best way to get to that visibility, because oftentimes you find yourself as a clerk or something, and you're just really, and that's the other part. You're a staffer, and even in the roles that I've uncovered, you're a staffer, so you have to keep in mind that you're supporting someone and making someone look good, but a job has to be beneficial for both the employer and the employee. So you soak up what you need out of that job, get the trainings that can also benefit you outside of that job, and then go for it.
One of the things you also said, and this, of course, this is before the podcast even started. I told you about the outburst I had, and I also told, I also said this to the previous person that we had, right, where I said that, hey, and maybe it doesn't have to be only Black men, right, where I said, hey, to Black men, rapping, basketball, and what else did I do? football, and not the only way is to make it out there, right? And the reason why I feel like that kind of one of the reasons why I'm still kind of on that idea as well is the fact that I came here from Cameroon, right, when I was much younger. We came to the United States, and the idea to play football, luckily, was something that was not really heavily introduced to me, not something that I was encouraged to do either, and not something that I was even interested to begin with. And I think that that's a good thing because technically I really have been good at it.
Yeah,
But
you would have been.
I know, I know, right? Um, but one thing for me that kind of bothers me is that um, we have a wide range of our community, right? Of people who are trying to pursue this specific path, and many of the reasons could be because every time we see, black people, is if it's a rapper, it's a basketball player, it's a football player, something like that, or it is an image that is not exactly painting us in the best light, which is why I also think that one of the things which, as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast here, in IE Strategic Solutions, and one of your goals really is to improve the posture of the Black community on the international stage. Would you talk to us a little bit more about that? And if you can also chime in on that comment or that statement that I made there of the football thing. But I definitely want to get some more of your ideas on, or hear some more of your ideas on improving the posture of the Black community as a whole.
So this goes back to my anecdote of those two different events that I mentioned earlier. Just let me just go back to what you said first. So yes, absolutely, right. I subscribe to what you were saying about that there's different avenues and that we should look beyond the given paths that are supposedly open to us. I think we as a people are a whole lot more talented than just being pigeonholed in these 3-4 career paths or paths to success. Because I think what's appealing about these particular career paths for young people is the financial aspect, or at least the promise of that financial aspect. And there's so many different ways of being successful financially than to just go and pigeonhole yourself in one particular on one particular path. As far as the posture is concerned, you touched on it, the image, right? We're battling an image daily, whether that's Black women, Black men, even our children are being viewed through a specific lens and often not even seen as children. And so when I was, again, at that same kind of event for that Africa Summit that I mentioned earlier, and I realized that there was just this disparity in support, and then also kind of the weakness that I saw in some of the ways of conducting diplomacy from those particular countries, I realized that in order for us to be seen and to be elevated, we sometimes also need the training and the exposure to these particular experiences, or to people that can coach you to the path of that particular success, or to the path of that particular position that you're looking for. But we need to be open to that particular criticism or to that particular coaching. And oftentimes we're not, because, and I got this, I know where I'm going, and I'm told to do this or that, and it'll work, or I got this guy right here. And nowadays everybody's an expert on Instagram. And so you could just find someone who tells you that they've done this and they'll charge you something, and then you expect to just be elevated. But it takes, for our leaders, whether that's you guys in your respective fields, or even a support person that has been there for years and years and years in whatever organization that they're at, to again pull people up. And I think in NIE, once what we're doing is it's transformative work in a sense that we don't turn anybody away. If you have the goal of reaching global success, or at least to be mentioned at the global level, whatever that looks like, right? Because not everybody is going to be working in government or in these huge Fortune 100 corporations. Global success can also mean, for example, my aunt started out as a humble seamstress in the Congo, in the DRC. Today, she is a wholesale person of African fabrics and African designs on 2 continents. I've asked her why she's not here, but I think it might be a language barrier, but I'm sure it's just because of age. But she could have, she could have. And so that's also global success, right? So I, outside of Inai, let me just stay with Inai first. With Inai, what we are doing is we are taking all of the strategies, all of the expertise, all of the experiences that we've had in these spaces. We take the cultural sensitivities that we've encountered and that we've identified in, for example, the spaces that our clients want to enter or elevate in, right, and craft strategies to get them to where they're going. And so outside of that, I also mentor. I just really recently got paired up with a young woman of Nigerian descent who is interested in developing a fashion line, not just here, but also, back on the continent and I guess globally. I haven't spoken to her about the global aspect yet, but I'm very excited to help her navigate all of these different stages and be aware that when she's dealing with all of the interlocutors at all stages, she has to be cognizant of who she has in front of her. Do your homework. Don't just go into a negotiation not knowing who you have in front of you. Know who you have in front of you. Sports people will go out before a game and study the footage, right, of the opponents and also of their own team to identify the weaknesses. And we do the same thing. We do the same thing from the client's perspective and then the market or the space that they're trying to enter.
So good.
Moving others up with you as you grow. I think that's something that this I would say the culture is missing because we've been brought up to say, hey, Michael Jordan, superstar. Michael Jordan did it by himself. Kobe Bryant, we're missing him right now, but that was the whole argument. He did it by himself. And I think that's been built into the culture, whereas that's not really what it takes for the culture to reach the level that it needs to be in. We're going to shift a little bit here.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to jump right into the kind of mindset that it takes to be successful in this kind of field. But I want to talk about the failures because, we've been talking about this wonderful industry and what you do and how you do it. But we do know that we do face failures sometimes, We're not always fully successful, and it's not easy breezy. I would say personally, one of my major failures was I did try very hard to join the Foreign Service. I think you know my story.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get in because of my speeding tickets. That was what I was told.
Wow, that is crazy.
So yeah, I would call it my own failure. I wouldn't blame it on FSI or Foreign Service Institute or whatever you want to call it. Well, yeah, that's my failure. I feel bad about it, but sometimes I think maybe that's not what God wanted me to do, because maybe I'll be in Afghanistan right now trying to escape. I mean, I feel bad for what's going on with those guys right now. And when we were both at the State Department, we lost our ambassador at what's it called? And we know him. You and I both know him. Actually, we've had several minutes with him. What's his name? Why am I forgetting his name right now? Yeah, we lost an ambassador. We lost, some of our mates. So I was like, maybe that's not what God wanted me to do. So I'm here doing what I do now. So I've learned from that. It was a great experience. I wish I've gone further, but everything happens for a reason. So yeah, talk to us a little bit about the challenges of what it takes to be successful in this industry. Because success is not a straight road. It goes with ups. It has its ups and downs.
No, it's not. And interestingly, I have a similar story, Kenny. I also tried to formally join the Foreign Service, and was also not not brought on into the ranks. And I, for the longest, felt like that was a failure because anybody and everybody that knew me had been telling me, "Oh, you'd be such a great fit." The diplomats were telling me this, you have it, And it took me a few years to just kind of be okay with that and to realize that I think what God was trying to tell me is that you have it, but this is not where I need you. I don't need you in this particular space. And it was years later that I found myself in the whole protocol realm and that I was introduced to this, to that world, to that universe that is so unique because it's not just government that you deal with. You deal with the highest levels of society, from government to business to academia to all of the creme de la creme, as they say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so I got a front row seat on that. And I honestly believe, as impressive as people may think these things were, it was really just my schooling to get to Inai so I can be of service to my people.
Like how you put that together.
That is powerful. Absolutely.
But you still haven't talked about the butt whooping moments,
So yeah, that was a hard, the failure was a hard pill to swallow. But the other thing that's been difficult on this road is just being a Black woman in that space. Navigating this whole assertiveness, getting things done without coming across as an angry Black woman. Oftentimes has you reverting into being a silent Black girl sitting at the table and kind of ruminating in your head, like, okay, how can I best
probably the
broach
only
this?
Black girl in the room too.
Only Black girl in the room. Oftentimes only woman in the room. And so, there's also an aspect of protocol, which is to beautify the spaces. And oftentimes that's the part that people know. And so it's easy to just kind of be relegated to the quote unquote decorator, like, go get the flowers or, fetch this. So that part, I had to really find my voice and create a leadership style that allowed me to be diplomatic, but to also identify when to just really kind of be assertive and just curt and straightforward and just get stuff done, which is not always well received, but as my father always said, not everybody's going to be your friend and you're here to do a job, so just do your job. So I was okay with that, but it's tough.
Yeah, I would also add, I would even go further. I would say not everyone should be your friend. Right?
Absolutely, that is also true,
and that is okay too, because not everyone is on the same path as you. So
that's true.
Absolutely, I love it. And now here's one thing though. I would say when we talk about the topic of angry Black women, which I want to just touch that term very lightly.
Michelle Obama went through the same thing.
Exactly, right. So like, there's the whole idea of angry Black women. You have in that when that comes up, right? There's I feel like there's two lanes, right? There's people that go out there, they get kicked, and they kind of retreat, and they're like, oh, I didn't get it because I was Black and X, Y, and Z. And for them, that is a stopping point. For them, that is something that could hold them back, right? And then on the other side, you have people that were in the space and they're like, well, I'm the only Black woman and I'm facing all this resistance, but they're continuously pushing and continuously excelling, right? And you have women like yourself doing the things that you're doing right now, extremely impressive. For you, what do you think is the separating factor, right, where some people choose to say, well, this is the adversity I'm facing, but I'm going to keep pushing, and those who say, well, it's because I'm Black, let me just step away from this situation?
I think that it's kind of fluctuating. It's not a static thing. I think as and I can speak for myself, but I think a lot of Black women have gone through I'm hitting a wall, let me just retrieve and sit back. that could last a day or two. It could last weeks. It could last months and years for other people. But I think it kind of fluctuates. I think as it doesn't matter how successful you are, it's very difficult to just be completely immune and insensitive to those type of dynamics, because it's very subtle, just like it's just microaggressions, like with everything else, where you know what it looks like. You can sense it, you can read it in the room, and you're essentially not taken seriously in some cases, but in other cases, you're also being provoked to get to that place where they now can say, but now you're having outbursts and you're being irrational, or we can't work with her because she's kind of aggressive. But the aggressiveness, the degree, how do you define aggressiveness, right? If somebody is assertive and just not going to stand for something that is clearly wrong, and pushes back, is that really being aggressive? Or you're just exaggerating and using these hyperbolics to push people in a certain corner? So I think the difference could be for some people that, or for some women, I should say, that you just completely give up and just accept your fate. I think a lot of us don't do that. I think a lot of us find ourselves in these ebb and flows and deal with kind of the mental health aspect of trying to stand tall and to take it all in, because you can't be vulnerable in these spaces. And then you have to just take some time to just kind of recuperate and do self-care and all these different things to just kind of recharge your battery and charge back up when you feel ready to just really go back. Because sometimes it feels like going behind enemy lines. It's that serious sometimes. So yeah.
And that's literally within your own team. You gotta perform with your own team, right? It's quite interesting. So that question right there was the question about the mindsets that I was talking about. But there's gotta be some level of discipline or something in you that just keeps you going. I mean, success, like I said earlier, is not a straight journey. What keeps you motivated? What kind of discipline, or what's that gear? You might have gear one, and when you shift to four, what gets you on what gets you to four or keeps you at four? If you have four gears.
I don't think anybody stays at four. I think right. I don't think I know I didn't set out to win. I just knew I wanted to be successful. And I think that maybe, and I don't know to what extent this applies, but I just found out not long ago that I'm neuroatypical, that I have ADHD. I didn't know that about myself, which helps you to hyper focus, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more of us out here, because I found out at my age just a few months ago. And now when I'm reading up, it makes a lot of sense. But I think what we tend to do is to just kind of like, you shift gears just like anybody else. And then one day you look in the rearview mirror and you say, oh my God, I went full speed ahead, and I didn't know I even got here, right? But I think it's definitely growth mindset. It's just being committed to learning and to just continuously be curious about what goes on around you. It's also the commitment to something that's bigger than you. When I see, I don't watch a lot of television, and I try to stay off of social media when I can, but it's hard. And when you see things that are just revolting, it adds fuel to that fire that's already inside you. And you say, I can do something. I think we all can. I think we just kind of underestimate our power, and the things that we know, and how much value we can bring to the greater good of the community. And it doesn't have to be anything at the highest levels. As I mentioned, my aunt, who I admire, started out as a seamstress and worked her way from a seamstress to creating her own designs, and then from her designs to her boutique, and then from one boutique to 3 boutiques and 5 boutiques, and now she's a wholesale. Her expertise is also instrumental from an entrepreneurial standpoint to other entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs out there. So everybody has something that they can bring to the table. And I think when we realize that we as individuals make up the collective and that we have a responsibility to the collective, and that there's people that don't know what we know, you start to think differently, and you also start to move differently. And when you surround yourself with like-minded people who are committed to something bigger than yourself as well, a cause that's bigger than yourself, it becomes a lot more easier and a lot more accessible to go on that path and to stay the course. And you find yourself looking in the rearview mirror, realizing, oh gosh, I did that.
Yep.
That was amazing.
I'm being the change I want the world to be, right? So what that saying?
Yeah.
The saying goes, be the change you want to see in the world, right? So
Yeah.
I would say that's amazing. So
yeah, because what you guys are doing is also transformative. I mean, I think it's very important to create platforms where we can be ourselves and where we can come and share our experiences and then share it with the world. You know,
Absolutely.
There was a time when this was not possible. Nobody would publish this. Nobody would broadcast this. Here we are.
This is true.
This is
are.
awesome.
We can publish it ourselves and broadcast it. I appreciate it. Thank you. And no one can stop us now. Look at us, Mom. Exactly. All right. Well, as we approach the end here, Kim, I want to ask, what is your definition? If you could give us like a summary, right? What would you say your definition of success is? What does that look like to you? For you and Inai Strategic Solutions?
So there's this quote that I go by, which is the ultimate sophistication is simplicity.
That is my quote. I love that quote. I have it somewhere on my.
The ultimate
I know the quote.
Sophistication is simplicity. And I think that a lot of the times we come up with strategies and methodologies and things that are vastly complicated, when in fact, if you condense it to its most simplest form, it is often the most efficient way to go, the most effective way to go. So that's kind of what I hold on to, is simplify, simplify, simplify. And it has served me well, and it has allowed me to be successful. When I get in my head, when I'm trying to solve a problem, the solution is oftentimes right there. So don't overthink, just simplify. And then you get the added bonus of coming across as sophisticated when the results are there. So why wouldn't you do that?
Absolutely. I agree with that. Absolutely subscribe to that. Love it. Okay, Kenny.
Hey, I don't know what I had to simplify. It's just keep it simple.
Hey,
Let me not add to that.
Yeah,
keep it
I think that is simplicity is the ultimate sophistication.
Yeah,
that says it right there. Well, Kim, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. We hope we can have you on again to just chit chat about these things, talk about leadership, and get some more knowledge for you. I think if any one of us can learn from it, and as I already told you, I totally feel inspired by the work you're doing, and I think we're all better for it. So really appreciate it. Just go for it. Take it away. 10 seconds. Just take it away. Just put out there any message you want to put out to the world. Anything you want to say to anyone. Go for it.
I just really want to thank you guys for having me here tonight. I just want to reiterate that this is exactly this kind of forum with the people from all different parts of our community that come together to inspire and share success stories is exactly what we need. We are more alike than we are not. Oftentimes there's these differences that are being played out even within our respective home countries, from a tribal perspective, or people looking at Afro-Caribbeans or even African Americans, but we all come from the same continent. And I think that there's power in coming together and putting our expertise to the greater good of our global community so that we can thrive, and that we just collaborate. That's the ultimate kind of message that I want people to think about, is with this connected world, there's a way to collaborate with people on the continent, to collaborate with the diaspora anywhere in the world, and we can build huge success stories together. And that's my hope for not just Anai, but for us as a people.
Love it.
Boom.
Very
Mic drop.
powerful message there. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, she is the founder of Inai Strategic Solutions. That's a PR and management consulting agency. Kim Reaux, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
For
Thank you.
being on the podcast. It really means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Until next time, please like, share, and subscribe. And we will see you with another awesome interview soon. Che out.